All right, good Wednesday evening to you, Mizzou fans, and welcome officially to basketball season. It's been that way for a little bit. Missouri fans are excited about basketball for the first time in a while, but it now is 100% fully basketball season. The Music City Bowl was originally going to end about 30 minutes ago. We had this whole big day planned. That didn't happen, but it's still a big day for you guys and in Columbia, Missouri, because a top 10 team in the Tennessee Volunteers is in town at Mizzou Arena, and a top 15 team is playing host to them in the Missouri Tigers, both teams 6-0. It's the SEC opener for both. The first night that really it is fully basketball season. College basketball taking center stage. So appreciate those of you who are joining us pregame. Just kind of want to lay out what we're going to do here because this is the first time we've done this on the basketball side. Well, we did a little bit with the bragging rights game, but that was kind of tied in with football. That was the same day as the Georgia game. So we have hopefully worked out some kinks during football season. We have some fancy graphics. You can see there's my name, Gabe DeArmond. That's me, the publisher of PowerMizzou.com. I'm going to be your host every SEC game plus the TCU game on, I believe it's January 29th, plus any postseason games that Missouri plays. We're going to do an hour-long pregame show before every single one of those for you guys. What we're going to do, we're going to play some interviews. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to take your comments and your questions, and we've already got some rolling in, and certainly appreciate that. And any that you want to share, anything you want to say, pop up in the comments. I do have a little bit of editorial control. We'll maybe there are some of them that don't quite make it on the screen, but we appreciate your comments, your questions. We want this to be an interactive thing. For every basketball game, it's going to be an hour-long pregame show. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take a break during the game. I'm going to go watch it. Mitchell Forty's covering it at the arena. You guys are going to watch it. I'm going to come back after Conzo Martin's Zoom call. We're going to do a post-game show after every single SEC game plus TCU plus the postseason. We're going to take your calls. We're going to break it down. Look, this is a basketball season that deserves coverage, and it's the first time we can say that in a while. I was talking with somebody earlier today. I would argue this is the biggest regular season basketball game that's been played at Mizzou Arena probably in 9 years. Maybe a little less than that because a couple of Frank Hayes teams did start off hot, and so there were some big games early in SEC play, but the games got less important as the seasons went on. So, we really haven't had a lot of big games here for a long time. So we have one tonight, number 7 or 6, Tennessee, depending on which poll you pay attention to. Number 12, Missouri, both 6-0. I don't think it's going too far to say this is for the early, right out of the gate, hey, this team might be the favorite in the SEC. Now, look, I think if Missouri wins tonight, like Tennessee's, that's not going to clinch anything. Tennessee's a really good team. They're still going to have a lot to say about this race. So, frankly, I think Arkansas. I think Florida still could. There's a lot of teams in this league that we just don't know much about because a lot of them haven't played very many games. But if Missouri can win tonight, it makes a statement, maybe even bigger than the Illinois game, maybe bigger than the Oregon game, that, hey, you need to take us seriously. We're here to actually do this thing. So, once again, appreciate all you guys being here. We're going to roll through certainly some of your comments. Mark Robinson, appreciate you being here. Brian, thanks for showing up, and that's what we're going to do every night during this show. We'll put your guys' comments on the screen. The only thing we ask of you are two things. Do comment, do participate, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel while you're here. Tell people what we're doing. The more people that are watching, the more people that are taking part, the better this goes throughout the year. And we want to do this. Look, I grew up, frankly, when Missouri was a basketball school, when basketball season was a big deal. It hasn't been one for a while. There have been some times, but it hasn't been one for a while. It is a big deal right now again. That's good for us. It's good for you guys, and we want to talk about it. And Brian asks, would tonight be Conzo's biggest win at Mizzou? There might have been some in 2017, right? I don't remember. They beat Kentucky at home in 2017. That seemed like a really big win at the time. That was a good Kentucky team. That Iowa State game where Michael Porter Jr. played a minute and a half and then sat down and then disappeared, it felt big. Iowa State wasn't that good. I'd say the biggest win of that year was probably the Kentucky game. Yeah, this might be his biggest win. I think it's probably fair to say. Now, obviously, it depends on what follows this. If they win this and then lose 3 in a row, it loses some of the luster. But at game time, I think it's fair probably to say that this would be his biggest win. T-Rise 4 was with us for a lot of the football games, and welcome back. Glad to have you here. Same goes for Ed Blythe. Actually, I won lunch off Ed at some point during one of our football shows. So, Ed, I haven't forgotten, man. I'm going to continue that. T-Rise says, I'll be with you all the way through the Final Four. I want to bring up one point. If Missouri goes to the Final Four, I'm going to be there in person. It's the one thing I want to cover sometime before I retire or die. I want to be at a Final Four. If Missouri goes to that, I'm going to be at the game. I'm not going to be here in my home office on those nights. But we will, I promise, if Missouri gets there, we'll have a lot of coverage of it. So Mitchell Bennett's asking about Tennessee. What are they good at and where do they need to improve? I'm being honest, Mitchell. Tennessee's good at almost everything. They score a lot. They score 80 a game. I think they're giving up 52 a game. They're out rebounding opponents by 12 a game. They force a lot of turnovers. They don't turn it over themselves a lot. They shoot 79% from the line. It's a really good team. It's a really balanced team. You see, we've got some of the stats up there over to, as you guys are looking at it, I don't know, it's probably to my right. As I'm looking at it, it's to my left. But they have 4 players averaging 10 or more points a game. They don't have anybody averaging as much as 14. In fact, there are 7 players in this game averaging double figures, and Xavier Pinson is the only one that averages 14. I think he's at 14.2 for the game. So they're 2 really balanced teams. Tennessee has a lot of veterans. They have 2 really good freshmen. I think Rick Barnes is one of the best coaches in the country. They do a lot of things well. They do have one potential weakness. They're not that big. I talked a little bit about that with Rob Lewis from VolQuest.com. We're going to play that interview for you guys here in a couple minutes. That's what we're going to do on this show. We generally have a chance to talk to some of the Missouri players before the game starts or before game day, I should say. Talked to a couple of them a couple days ago. I'm going to make every effort throughout the week to get in touch with somebody that covers the opposing team and give you guys a little more insight on the opposition for that day. So that's kind of what the pregame show is going to be. We're going to answer some of your questions, take some of your comments, and then play some interviews for you guys and just kind of give you a chance to hear from obviously some of the people involved. So we're going to start that actually again. I did talk to Rob Lewis, who covers Tennessee. We're going to get to that in a minute, but I want to start you with the Missouri perspective. And we had a chance to catch up with Drew Smith earlier this week. And so I want to let you hear from Drew, and I will continue to put your comments on the screen and all that. So please continue to take part in the conversation and everything as you listen to Drew Smith from a couple days ago.
Drew, what do you remember about this Tennessee team from last year, and what are you guys keying in on this time around this year?
I think what I remember most is just the post presence that they have. They like to get the ball inside, and also that they play really hard defensively. They're a good defensive team. So I think just focusing on keeping that ball out of the paint, keeping it out of the post, scraping it out if it does get in there, and then just working hard on the defensive end, getting stops. I think that's kind of what we're focusing on.
Eric? Hey, Drew. Obviously, I don't think the Illinois or Bradley game are what you would consider your best with the last 2. What have you kind of seen from your game in those that you think, okay, can quickly improve with what you've done the last 2 games?
Yeah, I think I just need to stay aggressive, keep trying to get in the paint and make plays, whether it's for myself or for other guys. I think that's kind of where I need to just continue to work on.
Sweetie?
What did you kind of learn last year from SEC play? Just kind of the ebbs and flows of, having 2 games a week and kind of the, just the up and kind of level of play too compared to the non-conference.
Yeah, I think it's you got to be prepared every night. It's not an easy task, no matter who you're playing. And like you said, it's 2 games every week. You know what you're walking into, and if you come out unprepared, then you're not going to come away with the end result that you want to. So I think we just have to make sure that we're locking in every night out there.
Ben?
Hey, Drew, just how special is it to jump into SEC play and the conference season with a top 15 matchup like this and 2 really good teams that are doing well?
Yeah, it's definitely really exciting. We're excited to get back out there. Obviously, Tennessee is a great team this year. They got some experience. They got a lot of guys back. So I think we're just looking forward to kind of being a dogfight.
Gabe?
Yeah, Drew, you mentioned staying aggressive, but how conscious are you of some foul trouble that you've gotten into? And how's that change, when you get to 3 or 4, how does that change the way you have to play?
Yeah, it definitely changes it a little bit. And like in the Bradley game, getting those 2 in the first half and the third one quick, just being in foul trouble kind of messes up your flow and stuff whenever you're in the game. It's hard to get into any kind of rhythm whenever your minutes are kind of coming sporadically, honestly. So I think just being smart on the defensive end, still being aggressive and making the right plays, but also just understanding that I need to stay out of foul trouble.
Has there been any kind of common theme in the games that you have gotten into foul trouble? Do you see something that you can look back on film and say, all right, I got to avoid that?
A lot of the times it's just kind of with my hands, kind of unnecessary fouls, honestly. So just making sure that I'm showing the ref my hands and keeping them out of people's way, basically.
Dave, madam?
Hey, Drew, with you guys in Tennessee being the only ranked teams in the SEC, is this a chance to make a statement in the league, or is it just too early for that?
I think we're just looking at it as this one game. Obviously, like I said, both good teams coming in, a big matchup, but I think we just kind of have to approach it like we do every other game. There's no reason to make it more than what it is.
Mason?
Hey, Drew. So with a 6-0 start and with 2 ranked wins in non-conference play, that's a pretty good start for any team. Do you believe that the team is where it needs to be entering the conference schedule?
I think we're close. Obviously, there's still stuff that we can work on. We came out last game flat. We weren't making shots. Obviously, we saw last game that we saw areas that we can improve on and things that we need to tighten up. But I think that overall, I think we're in a good spot right now.
Greg?
It's hard to believe that the season is actually just a little over a month old. How has that grind been for you compared to previous years? Does it feel like it's been longer, shorter, any different at all?
I'd say so. If you, I thought it would. Before you said that, I would definitely have said it's been longer than a month of the season starting. So I would say it definitely feels a little longer. It's definitely different. Like we have those long breaks in between games. You don't really know what's coming next. But I think we've done a good job of handling it and just kind of being prepared whenever the days do come.
Andrew Kaufman?
Drew, Coach Martin said last night that you guys got to go home for Christmas. Just how valuable was that for you and your teammates to kind of have that mental health to be able to see your family?
Yeah, I think that was definitely extremely valuable. I think a lot of everybody on the team values their family probably over anything else. So I think just getting that chance to get home, get away from it, and just enjoy those few days that we got was definitely really important.
Dude, I'm on a Zoom conference.
Colin?
Hey, Drew, looking back at that Bradley game, what were some of you guys' struggles in shooting that, getting the 2-point shot to fall, and then what's the challenges with Tennessee, which is a pretty good shot blocking team?
Yeah, I think just getting in there and making stronger plays off the dribble. I think when we get in there, we're getting in there against Bradley, we were kind of going off of 1 foot and more hoping that balls were going to go in, maybe looking for fouls more than we were just trying to make the shot. So I think just concentrating, getting in there, and making strong plays will kind of be what we need to do.
Bennett?
Hey, Drew, when you guys were all home, were there any like Zoom film sessions as a team or things like that? Or did Coach Martin sort of let it go altogether?
Yeah, he kind of gave us those 2.5, 3 days for ourselves. So yeah, we weren't really doing much basketball.
Karen.
Hey, Drew. Happy holidays. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Hey, you guys get to go home and you come back and you're, getting ready for a huge game. How did you guys stay focused, number one, for this game? And number two, you see what happened with football and all the COVID cases, and you got to walk that straight line of, not letting anybody breathe on you practically. So how did you guys handle that? What did Coach Martin basically say to you guys to stay focused and stay safe?
Yeah, as we were all kind of making our way home, he was just let us know, like, make sure you're wearing your mask, even around your family. Obviously, he wanted us to enjoy our time, but we also have to understand that when we get back, all the same rules still apply. So just making sure that we're being as safe and as conscious as we can as far as keeping our team safe and keeping our season going as smoothly as it has so far. So I think that was really it, just trying to stay as safe as we can for those days while we were at home.
Sweetie.
Hey, Drew, when you're number 12 in the country, just coming in, maybe the preseason expectations were what you guys expected you guys could be, when now, kind of outside expectations meet up with where you guys think you guys are. Does that change anything in terms of just, outside pressure or anything like that?
I don't think it changes anything. I think, like you said, this is kind of what we thought, where we expected to be and what we thought we had in the locker room. So I think, I think it's something that we have to handle, and the pressure obviously comes with it. But I think at the end of the day, this is kind of what we expected and where we wanted to be.
All right, so Drew Smith from earlier in the week, wanted to let you guys hear from him. We've got some stuff from Jeremiah Tillman. If we have time, we'll play that later, but we're going to check in with Rob Lewis from VolQuest. We're going to check in with Mitchell Forty over at the arena prior to tip-off, so may not get to Tilly tonight, but we'll have hopefully different players throughout the season and kind of let you guys hear from each of the guys on the roster before the game. Want to roll through and answer some of the questions and respond to some of the comments real quick that have you guys have been posting during Drew's interview and earlier. John wants a pick to click tonight. I'm going to give you a pick to click if Missouri's going to do well. I'm not going to say that this is the guy that's going to play well because, look, I have no idea, right? They're 20-year-old kids, 21-year-old kids. Who knows what the hell's going to happen? But if Missouri's going to play well, the key to this game is Jeremiah Tillman. Now, that's easy to say because he's the key to a lot of games, right? He's probably the guy that changes – that is the difference between good Missouri and bad Missouri more than any other individual. But it's especially true in this game because Tennessee has John Fulkerson in the middle, but they really don't have anybody else that has the size to match Jeremiah Tillman. And he's a really skilled offensive player. He's more athletic than John Fulkerson is. He can cause problems for Tennessee on the defensive end if he's playing well. But there have been times that Jeremiah kind of, he floats and isn't always engaged. So this is going to be huge for Missouri to get good Jeremiah Tillman tonight. Ed's wanting to know where we came up with the names for the shows. The baseline view is this show. Our postgame show is called Dance Class. This one just, I don't know, baseline view, pretty, I've called our photo galleries that in the past, right? Kind of a generic basketball term that we're trying to give you a view from a little bit closer than you guys get to sit in the post-game show. I called the Dance Class very simply because the idea of it to me is after every game, we're going to talk a little bit about what's this do for Missouri's chances to get to the dance, to get back to the NCAA tournament. That's the way I'm viewing every game at this point this season. What does it do for the postseason chances? Because even before this season started, I viewed it as this needs to be an NCAA tournament season. And now that they're 6-0, it would be a huge disappointment if this is not an NCAA tournament team. So that's kind of the lens that we're viewing this whole season through. So that's kind of why I went with that on the post-game show. Nick Monteleone, I hope I pronounced that correctly, is asking SEC win total over or under 12.5. I think if I was going to set it, I would set it at 11.5. Ken Palm predicts Missouri to go 13-5. I think I went through game by game and kind of came up with 13-5, but I would give them another loss if I was setting the over-under, and say, hey, if they can get to 12, that's the over. And I think that would be a really good season. I mean, they're 6-0. They've got one non-con game left against TCU. That's a losable game. TCU's a solid team. And then they've got the 18 SEC games. So you're 6-0 with 19 games left. You're going to play 25 regular season games. I think if this team finds its way to 19-6, that's a phenomenal season. Whether that means 12-6 in the league and lose to TCU, and beat TCU, or whether it's 13-5 in league play and lose to TCU, doesn't really matter. But I think over under 12.5 wins the rest of the way. 12.5 wins in 19 regular season games to play would be a good number. 13-6, huge success. That's kind of where I'd set the bar for Missouri. Jonathan wants to know, Mizzou wins if what? I think if Tillman is engaged and if they limit turnovers. Missouri they're better than they've been the last couple of years, but they still give the ball away sometimes at a little bit of an alarming rate, and a lot of them are unforced. I'd keep the turnovers in single digits, and I think Missouri has a good shot to win this game. If you start getting up to 11, 12, 13 turnovers, and Tennessee's perfectly capable of forcing them, you do that, you're giving away possessions, and that's something you can't really do against a team as good as Tennessee. Jacob Estes wants to know if this is the first time I've watched a non-Mizzou SEC team play this year. I watched about 15 minutes of Arkansas-Auburn before this, and I got to tell you, Arkansas, I know they haven't played anybody. They're going to be really good this year. They're going to be in that top 4, I think, with Missouri and Tennessee and maybe Florida. Auburn's going to be good in spurts. Auburn's going to beat somebody here and there. I don't know that they're a great team, but they're going to win some games. But Arkansas, Eric Musselman's got some talent on that team. But I honestly have not seen a ton of SEC basketball this year, just because we've been caught up in football mostly. Cam's wanting to know if there were truth to the rumors that Torrance Watson might redshirt this year. Maybe, but I think, like you said, that decision was made so early. Konzo has talked a lot about needing to get Torrance more involved and get him in the rotation, but I don't know whose minutes you take away. This team is playing well. Yeah, he'd like to play him more, but I don't know where you play him at this point in time. What's more important, hitting threes or getting the ball inside and going to the line? Brian wants to know. I'd say get it inside, go to the free throw line, because I know this team can do that. I'm not sure this team can hit threes. They're actually shooting the three worse than they did last year. They're shooting 28.4% from three-point range this year. I've seen enough to say, now look, they're going to have a couple nights where they get hot and hit 50, 60%, but it's not going to be a common thing. I've seen enough that I don't believe this is a very good shooting team. Mitch Sharp wants to know why Tennessee's considered top 10 this year when they were 17-14 last year. They have a good mix of, they bring back guys who are experienced and who have done this before, and then they've got a couple really good freshmen, and they've got a transfer in Victor Bailey Jr. Yes, that is the son of former Mizzou wide receiver Victor Bailey. People of my age and older will remember him from the Kent Kiefer, Bob Stoll years at Mizzou. So that's him. He's actually their leading scorer. We talked a little bit to Rob Lewis about him, and we'll get that in just a minute. Justin's asking a little bit about Yaya Keita, one of the recruits. I don't know a lot about where he sits right now with the recovery. I would assume he'll be fully healthy. He tore his ACL earlier this fall. Would assume he will be fully healthy when he hits campus next year. But yeah, he could play a large role. But, right now, Missouri 6-0. They're in the top 15. They're going to be in the top 10 if they win a game or two this week. So let's not wish away this season quite yet, right? Bob Douglas is joining us, and he misses Mitchell. I got good news for you, Bob. Mitchell in about 20 minutes is going to join us. We're going to Skype him from the arena. So I feel like we've got to hit this before we get to the interview with Rob Lewis talking about Tennessee. Justin wants to know thoughts on the KU reporter not having Missouri ranked based on last year's information. Look, I think Missouri is clearly one of the top 25 teams in the country right now. If I had a vote, they would be in my top 25. They'd probably be in my top 15. But I'm not going to get all bent out of shape because if Jesse Newell worked for any other paper in the country and covered any other team, I don't think people would be all that upset. He happens to cover KU for the Kansas City Star, and so people are upset. But as I've said a number of times, the beauty of college basketball, unlike college football, is they have this system that lets you go win a championship no matter how people vote for you. You actually go win it on the floor. So whether Jesse Newell ever, I said in my mailbag today, I hope he commits to it, man. I hope Missouri goes 2-0 this week and he doesn't vote for him again. I hope Missouri's like 17, 18-0 and Jesse Newell's still not putting him in the top 25. Like, he's taking heat for it. Just commit to it at this point, right? I'd be just fine with that because it truly just doesn't matter. So we've got tip-off. Mitchell texted me, tip-off from Mizzou Arena is going to be 8:05, 8:06, somewhere in that range. We're going to take you guys right up to 8 o'clock on this show, which means we've got about 35 minutes left. So in order to talk to Mitch from the arena and get the rest of your questions in, right now what I want to do is I want to play the interview I did with Rob Lewis, who covers Tennessee basketball and has done so for a long time for our site on the network. So I'm going to play I think it's about a 12, 13-minute interview here with Rob Lewis. You guys will get a little more insight into the Vols and what Missouri is facing tonight. We'll come back. We'll hit up Mitchell from the arena. We'll take some of your questions, and we'll get set for tip in this one. All right, talking to Rob Lewis from VolQuest.com, covers the Tennessee Volunteers for the Rivals Network. And Rob, I don't know, football drama in your part of the world, but I guess people tell me it's basketball season. It hasn't really seemed like basketball season, but it's getting going here.
Yeah, it's obviously, you've been through the same thing. It's been really weird. And, Tennessee had their first 4 games canceled. They were able to get some substitutes for those, but missed what would have been a marquee matchup with Gonzaga in Indianapolis on a neutral court. They had to hit pause on all basketball activities for 11 days right at the end of November, start of December. So, probably not as smooth and cohesive as they would be, had all that not happened. But nonetheless, still, pretty strong start. Haven't, played any real heavy hitters yet. Opened up with Colorado and Cincinnati, who are decent. And then, kind of some mid-majors, but 6-0 and, sort of there's a lot of hype about this team. And right now they look capable of living up to it. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you is really, what do we know about this team? Because, yeah, they beat Colorado and Cincinnati. Like you said, they're decent teams, but all the other games against teams that we might have learned something about Tennessee, we didn't see. They're winning by an average of 28 points a game, so they've done what they should do. But really, I did an SEC preview thing this morning, and I looked around and it's impossible to know anything about any of these teams because outside of Missouri, Kentucky, and maybe Alabama, nobody's really played anybody. So I don't know what to think entering league play. Yeah, I'm with you the same way. Getting a little sidetracked from our game, but Kentucky and Alabama are probably the 2 biggest surprises to me. Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily think Kentucky was going to be a top 10 powerhouse, but I certainly didn't think they'd be 1-6 and kind of looking like they're imploding. And Alabama at 5-3, a couple, got blown out kind of by Stanford. They brought a lot back. I thought that they would be a little better. Now, I don't know what kind of COVID issues they may have dealt with as far as absences or whatnot, but those are 2 teams that I expected to be in the top, third of the league. And clearly they've got some issues. So before we get into some of the stuff with Tennessee for the Missouri fans, I'm just curious. I know you guys talked to Rick Barnes on Tuesday and kind of wonder what he had to say about Missouri and the way Konzo's got this team playing early on. A lot of respect for Missouri, really, and he's always very complimentary of Konzo. I think has a lot of respect for him as a coach and probably even more so as a person. Respects the kind of program that he runs. I think him and Rick kind of are in the same camp in that regard. And, talked a lot about their toughness, which is always going to be reflective of a Konzo team, defense and the veterans. A lot of guys that have played a lot of basketball that are really comfortable in that system and are just, know what Konzo wants, know how Konzo wants to play. Yeah, that's kind of a theme for me, not only with Missouri, but there's a lot of familiar names in Tennessee's lineup too. And I think what we're finding out in this weird season where there was no offseason is
it pays to have guys that were here last year and guys that have played together. And I think kind of the opposite of what's going on in Lexington. You're throwing in all these new faces and like they didn't get any practices together. So how big do you think really for both of these teams' experience has been so far?
Yeah, I mean, for Tennessee, it's been huge. I mean, they only have 2 seniors, but they also bring back, two guys who are sophomores, and Josiah James and Santiago Vescovi that were thrown into the fire last year and played 30+ minutes a game as freshmen. And they have a really nice mix, I think, of experience with Eve Pons and John Fulkerson too. The SEC Defensive Player of the Year in Pons. Fulkerson was second team all SEC last year. Really nice blend of veterans and exciting youth. The 2 freshmen, Jaden Springer and Keon Johnson, Barnes isn't starting them right now, but they have both lived up to the 5-star hype. I mean, they've shown flashes of being, who Tennessee fans hoped they would be. And kind of the biggest, not really a surprise, but Victor Bailey, transfer from Oregon, who sat last year. Everybody expected him to be a good player. I didn't expect him to be Tennessee's leading scorer through 6 games. But he's averaging 12 and change, but Tennessee's got 6 guys that are averaging between 8 and 12 points, just a really balanced offensive unit.
That's another kind of similarity, I think, between these 2 teams. I mean, Missouri's played a couple of games against ranked teams where I look at it and say, well, the other team has the 2 best players in this game, but Missouri's got 6 of the next 7, I think, because you don't know which guy it's going to be on which night. Has Tennessee, and again, I know some of the competition hasn't been great, but as they get into SEC play, do you expect it to be kind of a situation where, yeah, maybe one night it's Bailey with 20 and another night it's Josiah Jordan with 20, a team that can go a lot of different directions?
Oh, without question. They've already had 4 different guys lead them in scoring in 6 games, and I think you're going to see that all year long. They have nobody's playing 30+ minutes a game. It's really balanced. Like everybody, field goals. Bailey through 6 games has taken more shots than anybody at 60, but then you've got 5 of the guys that have 48 attempts or above. So just a really balanced team, and the depth is a strength. I mean, they can go 7 deep with no drop off. Not, you probably like to have a little more size in the post. It's not ideal if you really want to pinprick them and look for a weakness. Mm-hmm. They don't have just a 6'10", 230-pound guy that's a bull down low, and there are better guards, individual guards in the country, but I don't know if anybody has 5 that would equal Tennessee. I mean, they would Vescovi, James, Victor Bailey, and the 2 freshmen, Keon Johnson and Jaden Springer. It's been pretty impressive.
I want to ask you a little more about Bailey because I'm sure you guys are aware his dad was actually a wide receiver at Missouri back in the late 80s or early 90s, and Missouri recruited him pretty heavily out of high school before he went to Oregon. So I was surprised too when I went and did some of the stats that he was leading them in scoring. I didn't realize that. But what have you seen out of him as a player just through 6 games?
He's a big time athlete. I mean, I would say he's
he's got some good bloodlines.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned his dad. His mom was an Olympian, I think, in the 400-meter hurdles. And that was the tie. She was a track coach at Texas. Yep. So he went to high school in Austin. So grew up, around Barnes and some of the assistants that came to Tennessee. Tennessee's program, when Rick first got here, wasn't quite the place where they were getting talent like Bailey when he was coming out of high school. But when he kind of soured on Oregon after Rick had made the turnaround here, made a lot of sense. Just really impressive athlete. Left-handed guy, as you know, good 3-point stroke. Good penetrator, and has a chance to be a really, really good defender just because of his athleticism and lateral quickness.
Yeah. So look, Tennessee's outscoring people by 28 a game. They're out rebounding people by 12 a game. They turn teams over all the time. They play really good defense. So what if there's something, you mentioned the size, but if there's something that we get to the end of this year and you go, they weren't maybe quite as good as I thought they were going to be. What is it?
I think it's the size. If they run up against a team with elite size, and you don't see a lot of that in the NCAA these days. If you do, he's a freshman and he's on his way out the door after 1 year. But if they run up against teams with some real bangers, I think that the rebounding is what you worry about. Not so much inside defense, because I think that they play good enough team defense to where even if they do, come up against a really skilled post player, they can hold their own. But getting on the boards. Like you mentioned they're out rebounding people. They got out rebounded against Colorado, which is probably the best team that they played, and that was a real sore spot with Rick, and it's been a real point of emphasis since then. And the leading rebounder on the team is James, a guard. I mean, he's a big guard, but that's not what you want.
So in this game in particular, then would you say from the other side of it, the key for Missouri might be what Jeremiah Tillman can get done? I mean, he is very skilled, 6'10", 250-ish, and probably a guy that to opposing SEC teams seems like he's been in school for about 8 years now.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any question that's going to be Tennessee's focal point. And John Fulkerson is a really good player, but he's not your prototypical 5-man. I mean, he's 6'9", but rail thin and can get moved off his spots. And I would say not just what Tillman can get done, but if they can get Fulkerson in foul trouble, Tennessee doesn't really. They will miss his post score. They don't really have a guy that's interchangeable, unlike a guard where they can mix and match 5 pieces. They need Fulkerson in the game on offense, not just because of his scoring ability, but Rick likes to play inside out. No matter what, he wants the ball to go inside. Then you play, either the postman makes something happen himself, or he makes a play for somebody else. So keeping Fulkerson on the floor is going to be key. And foul trouble has not been a problem for him so far this year in any significant sense. But Tillman's the kind of guy that can bang and bruise and maybe make that happen.
So I look at this game. I think Missouri's got a little more on the line than Tennessee does. I mean, I think this really could be a, hey guys, we're serious game for Missouri. Whereas Tennessee, I think probably has less to prove. But do you look at this going in as, hey, based on what we've seen, these are, if not the top 2 teams in this league, certainly probably 2 of those teams that shouldn't have to play for a couple days in Nashville if we get to have a conference tournament.
No, yeah, without question. I mean, I think if you just look at the resume, and Missouri's got the best resume in the league right now with those wins over Illinois and Oregon. Tennessee passes the eye test, but as you say, they've not really been challenged yet. And I think this is a real big measuring stick for both teams, and kind of sets the tone for the first part of conference play.
So a couple ones for Mizzou fans that'll be interested in this type of thing, more big picture. Somebody asked Konzo today, and look, he hadn't been there for a while. Like, it's been 6-7 years since he was at Tennessee. I don't really think it's a story, but somebody did ask him if this game means anymore, and I mean, he shut that down immediately.
Oh, I can imagine.
Tip the ball up, go on to the next one. Has there been any change of the way Konzo is viewed by Tennessee fans at all, or has it been long enough that Tennessee fans just don't really think about Konzo anymore?
I would say for them, they think about him 2 or 3 times a year whenever Tennessee plays Missouri in basketball, but I don't think there's any lingering animosity like there was, say, with Lane Kiffin.
right
For instance, and I think a lot of fans remember him fondly. A lot of fans are a little bitter with the way it ended, and left a bad taste in their mouth. But I think for the most part, it's water under the bridge by this point.
So then the last thing is there's a guy on the Tennessee bench that Missouri fans know real well, and obviously Kim English, I think, had maybe some opportunities in the offseason. Is the feeling around the program there that hey, Kimmy's going to be a head coach somewhere sooner rather than later?
Yes, Rick Barnes has told me that personally himself. He's got a lot of respect for Kim English now. I don't know if he's immediately going to jump and be Missouri's next head coach. He may need to earn his stripes somewhere smaller first, but I know he's well loved and respected in Missouri, and he's getting that way here at Tennessee. Coach Barnes has a lot of respect for Kim. He jokes that he's still his best player on the team. I mean, Kim still gets out there and practice, and gets in there and more than holds his own, and proven to be a big time recruiter. He was the lead guy on Kennedy Chandler, the top point guard in the country from Memphis. Right. And Tennessee just doesn't go into Memphis and get guys that Memphis wants like they did with Chandler. So that was a big recruiting coup that Kim got done just this past year.
Yeah. Hey, look, I like him. I got a lot of respect for him. I have a hard time believing he'd be the best player on an SEC title team at this point in time, but maybe I'm wrong, man. Maybe he's worked on his game the last few years even more.
Coach Barnes has a good sense of humor, so that may have been what that was rooted in. But he does. He still looks like he can play. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, Rob. I appreciate it, man. Should be a fun one on Wednesday night in Columbia. So look forward to it, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Good deal. Thanks, Gabe. I enjoyed it.
All right, that's Rob Lewis from VolQuest.com. That's our Tennessee site on the Rivals Network. He has covered Tennessee basketball for quite a while, and look, it's always better for the guy who covers the other team to tell you about the other team more than me, because he knows more about it than I do. So tip-off 25-ish minutes away. We're going to check in with Mitchell Forty over at Mizzou Arena here in a few minutes, but we'll hit up a few more of your questions first here on the Baseline View. Again, this is our pregame show. We're going to do this every night or every day. Like Missouri plays Saturday at 11 o'clock. That means we're going to do this at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. So an hour before tip-off every week or every game, we will be here. We'll talk about it. We'll talk to somebody that covers the opposing team. We'll give you guys some insight from the players, things like that. Appreciate all you guys being here. While you're here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Comments, questions, always welcome. And we'll get to a few of those before we do check in with Mitchell. Fact Finder 95, any idea on capacity? It's going to be the same, at least for the foreseeable future, about 3,000 people. That's right around 20%. That's what they're going to allow. So every game's going to be pretty similar until, numbers settle down. They change some of the public gathering rules, maybe things like that in Columbia, but that hasn't happened yet. So it's going to be about 3,000 fans at every game, I think. Tyler wants to know, do you think Mizzou will be able to push the pace tonight, or Tennessee keep this as a slow slugfest? Obviously, Missouri would like to push the pace, and I don't think Tennessee's opposed to that, right? Rick Barnes tends to play a little more slow-down defensive basketball, but, he's had teams in the past that can get out and run, and this team's got some athletes. I think Tennessee be willing. I think this is a game in the 70s. I wouldn't be stunned if it got into the 80s, but I think it's in the 70s, and then Cameron asking about Kimmy, and we talked a little bit about that with Rob Lewis. Look, Kimmy had some opportunities last offseason. I think he could have had the SEMO job if he wanted it, but I think he knows, be a little picky. Don't take a head coaching job just because it's a head coaching job. There are a lot worse things than sitting on the bench with Rick Barnes, learning a little bit for another year, maybe winning an SEC title, maybe making a deep run in March. Your stock rises a little bit more. I think Kim English will be a head coach somewhere next year. Just kind of, that's my guess. Could be, maybe not. Maybe the right opportunity doesn't arise, but I think he's got a shot. Justin Lepard is Tillman over under 14 and 10. I think if Jeremiah, well, I'm not going to say that. For Missouri to win, I think Jeremiah Tillman needs a double-double. Let's say that. If he doesn't get to 10 points, doesn't get to 10 boards, I don't think Missouri wins this game. I think he's got to have a double-double for Mizzou to win the game. Garrett Dollins with the SVP reference. I didn't really realize it. For the record, I do not actually shave my head. There is a little bit of hair up there. It's hard to see because the light's right above my head, but I promise there is some. Not as much as maybe is on my face, but I do actually have a little bit left. So Ed's asking if Kimmy would come here to be an assistant with Konzo. I don't think so. His next job is going to be a head coaching job. I don't think he's going to go anywhere for an assistant's job. And Jack Acuff is asking if we're doing the watch-along stream. So we're not doing that during basketball season because we have enough people with streaming and just everybody's watching the game at a little bit different time. And I'll be honest, the one thing that I thought wasn't as popular during the football season was the actual game watch-along. There were times where it was pretty cool to be here and chatting about it with Mizzou fans, but we're doing pregame and postgame. So we're going to lead you up to 8 o'clock. Tip-off is going to be about 8:05. We got about 15 minutes left in this show. We'll lead you up to tip-off on this show, and then I'm going to go watch the game. You guys are going to watch the game, or you watch the game, and then I'll jump on Konzo Martin's Zoom call. I'll record that. I'll start a post-game show. We'll play Konzo's post-game. It usually goes 10 to 15 minutes. We'll play that. Then we'll open up the phone lines. I'm guessing the post-game show is going to be around 10:30 tonight, usually 20 to 30 minutes after the game ends. So during basketball season, we're not doing the in-game watch-along. Now, that may change. If there's a huge game and there's a big demand for it, we might do it. But the thought is we're going to do pregame and postgame along the way for basketball season. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to dial up Mitchell 40. Hopefully he will answer relatively quickly from the arena. And okay, there is Mitch. He's already answered. So hey, Mitch, what's going on, man? Sounds like there's a few people over at Mizzou Arena.
Yeah, so I hope you all can hear me. There was really not a very quiet place for me to go because fans are in the concourses this time. So you have the audio in the background, but I am here. There are fans here, and we are about 15 minutes away from tip.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can also hear the ambient noise of Mizzou Arena, so we're really getting the sense of the atmosphere, which is nice. A lot of the talk has been about Tennessee. I mean, you wrote the preview this morning. They do pretty much everything well. I mean, they haven't really been tested, but there aren't a lot of obvious weaknesses in this team.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I would say their strength right now looks like it's their defense. Now, it is worth noting the last 3 teams they've played have all been very bad. I'm not sure any of them have even won a game this year. But, you know, they are tied. I think either tied for the lead or leading the country in scoring defense. Got national anthem. Timeout.
All right. We'll let Mitch roll. We'll put Mitch on mute for a minute. We'll go back to me. When the national anthem is over, we will go back to Mitch. We can do that. So I kind of forgot that was going to happen right in the middle of that, But, hey, we'll allow Mitchell to be patriotic for, a minute and 15 seconds. Ron Davis says, feel sorry for Rob Lewis having to deal with Tennessee fans. Tennessee basketball fans, I think, are a little bit more rational than maybe some of the Tennessee football fans. Mitchell Bennett, yeah, basketball too fast for an on-the-call show. I agree. I mean, by the time some of us on streaming catch up, like you've already seen 2 extra possessions, so it doesn't really work that way for basketball. Maybe like it does. There's a lot of downtime in football. There's frankly just not very much downtime in basketball, so that's why we're doing things the way we are doing it. And Bob Douglas, I see your comment, but the national anthem is almost over. Okay, the national anthem now is over, and so we wanted to wait for Mitchell to be back on. Bob Douglas has been waiting for you the whole show, Mitchell, so he's very happy that you're here.
Well, glad he gets to see me. That was that was kind of less than ideal timing, but
yeah.
I managed to not I don't think end up on Twitter or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you could do your patriotic duty and pay attention to the Star Spangled Banner. But again, like Tennessee, I mean, this is, I don't know, is this Missouri's biggest test? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we didn't. I think like Oregon was maybe a bigger test in the sense that we didn't really know how good Mizzou could be, and Illinois is probably comparable to Tennessee, but obviously Tennessee is ranked a little higher right now. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's right up there with those two. And these are, maybe the 2 teams that are going to be battling it out for an SEC title. So getting to see them head-to-head to start off conference play will kind of set the tone.
Yeah, I think Missouri has more to prove tonight. Tennessee maybe has a little more to lose. I mean, this is Missouri's proven plenty. Losing this game won't be a big deal, but this is a home game. People, I think, believe a little bit more in Tennessee. And so Missouri can make a big statement tonight. Tennessee could maybe make a big step kind of toward, hey, we just went on the road and beat the only team that looks like maybe they can challenge us. But I think Missouri's got more at stake tonight.
Yeah, I think the thing with Missouri is, this program hasn't had a ton of big games the last 7 or 8 years, right? And so when you get one, you don't want to just like lay an egg and have everyone go away and say, Mizzou's back to doing that again. And like you said, like that shouldn't be the reaction because they've already beaten good teams this season. We think this is a good team. But anytime you have kind of this hyped up type of game, especially an SEC opener, you certainly want to put your best foot forward.
I started the show saying biggest game at least since Kentucky in 17, but realistically, I think it's the biggest regular season game at Mizzou Arena probably since 2012.
Yeah, I mean, right up there with that Kentucky game was, we already thought that team was that team was a tournament team and all that. Like the Tennessee game that year was also kind of big, but I mean, I don't know that they've played this highly ranked a team with a realistic chance to win at Mizzou Arena in a while. I think Illinois was a little lower, so yeah.
Yeah. Pre-game getting loud and out of control. I just remember that 2017 Kentucky game was like the first game you covered for us, and I was in Hawaii. I wish it was the same. Yeah, I wish I was in Hawaii for this game also. So.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, Mitch. Thanks, man. We'll let you go cover it and listen to the quiet PA. All right.
Enjoy the game.
Yeah. Mitchell Forty checking in from Mizzou Arena. And again, like, hey, guys, apologize a little bit for the audio. There's nothing we can do about that, right? It's a loud arena. There's nowhere for Mitch to go stand where nobody's at. So, hey, just wanted to check in with him, get kind of the sense of things over at Mizzou Arena before this gets started. Breakfast King of Loyola joining us for the tail end of the show. And what I actually want to do, we got about 7-8 minutes here left. Like I said, we're going to lead you up to 8 o'clock. Tip off, Mitch said 8:05, 8:06, somewhere in that neighborhood over at the arena. It is on the SEC network. For those of you wondering, that's where you watch it. But I want to look a little bit around the SEC and what's happened, because this is the first week of SEC play. And Jacob Estes notes that Mississippi State is up 20 on Georgia in Athens. And so let's take a look at some of the other things that have happened in this league. We'll start last night. LSU beat A&M 77-54. I think Buzz Williams is still a year or two away in College Station. LSU's got plenty of talent. Look, the story with LSU is, why in God's name are they allowed to be playing for anything, and why is Will Wade on the bench and all that? But as long as they're playing, like, they're going to be an upper half of the league team and certainly challenge for a top 4 spot in the league, I think. Alabama and Ole Miss, which are two of those teams kind of in the, I don't know, somewhere between like 4 and 10 range, where you think any given night they could beat each other. Alabama pasted Ole Miss last night 82-64. South Carolina and Kentucky couldn't play. South Carolina's last practice, I should say, before this week was on December 7th. They've played 3 games all year with COVID issues. So nobody knows what to make of South Carolina. Mississippi State now up 81-68 on Georgia with 1:33 to go. So, we knew the Bulldogs were going to win that, but the Mississippi State Bulldogs are going to win that. It's Georgia's first loss. Georgia has played no one this year. They have a 7-0 record based on basically absolutely awful competition. There were a few teams in the SEC when I went through and did the preview yesterday that had like strength of schedules that just you couldn't even believe. And I'm going to actually go look up Georgia's right now. They came in, like I said, 7-0 in the league, and let's take a look at what their strength of schedule was in the non-con. It was 275. They beat Cincinnati, but like that's the only team you've even heard of that they beat. So they're going to lose tonight to Mississippi State in the league opener. Looks like Arkansas is going to get a road win at Auburn, 89-79. I'm telling you, Arkansas hadn't played anybody either. Arkansas's strength of schedule was actually even worse than Georgia's. It was 295. Their best win was over North Texas. They're 8-0. But if you've seen that team, like, they got guys. I mean, that's going to be a team that I think is a top 4 team in the SEC. Desi Sills has 20 for Arkansas tonight. Moses Moody is a true freshman. He's their leading scorer. They've got 4 guys with 12 or more at Auburn. I think Arkansas is going to be a problem for a lot of teams in this league. If I had to pick the top 4 teams in this league right now, I'd probably go in some order: Tennessee, Missouri, Arkansas, LSU. I think Florida would have been in that conversation, but they lost Keontae Johnson, and they haven't played in 3 weeks. And, it's just absolutely impossible to really know much about what Florida is going to be or how they're going to react to losing the preseason SEC Player of the Year. So I'd go, again, Tennessee, Missouri, Arkansas, LSU in some order. I don't know who would be 1, who would be 4. I think maybe get a little idea about that tonight, but I'm not going to draw any conclusions tonight. The loser of this game tonight can still easily win the SEC. It's an 18-game season. It would be a little tougher for Missouri because this is a home game. They've still got to go to Knoxville later in the year. It's an interesting week for Missouri, right? It's home against Tennessee. It's at Arkansas. I think that's 2 of Missouri's 3 toughest games all season in week number 1. So I don't panic if this team is 0-2 come Saturday afternoon. They could be 0-2 and end up 13-5, 14-4. I think that's very possible because I think they have 2 of their 3 toughest games at the beginning of the season. Stewart says Georgia's making a run. They're still down 8 with a minute to go. Now Stewart's asking, are we that good? I assume you mean Missouri. I mean, look, they have the best resume outside of Gonzaga, maybe in the country. They're 6-0. They've got a road win. They've got a neutral site win. They've beaten 2 ranked teams. They beat a top 10 team, and I don't think they played their best game yet. I don't think they played a complete game. So are they that good? I don't know, but they're 6-0, and they deserve to be ranked 12th. They win this game tonight, I think you can say, yeah, they're that good. But tonight's a little bit of a proving ground for Missouri because there are people still asking, are they that good? And so they don't have to win this game, but they do have to show up. Tennessee comes out and wins this game by 22 points, like Mitch was saying. I think a lot of people are going to go, yeah, Missouri had it was a nice little run. Beat Illinois at home, good for them. Beat Oregon, not sure how good Oregon is, but when the big boys showed up, Missouri didn't. So Missouri needs to show up in this game. I don't know that they have to win it, but they need to show up. We've talked about all the keys. They got to hit some shots. They got to hang on to the ball. Jeremiah Tillman's got to have a big game, I think. Breakfast King of Loyola wants me to ask Konzo to change the uniforms. I honestly, I haven't even noticed the flames or the waves or whatever. I had no idea those were on the uniforms until people started talking about it today. So I probably won't ask him, if I'm being honest, man. They designed whatever uniforms they want. I'm going to pay attention during the broadcast tonight, though. So, hey, this is the first time we've done this for Hoops in this way. Again, we did a little bit for bragging rights, but that was coming off a football game, and we just kind of powered straight through into a second show. So what we will do, again, got about a minute left here. Promised I'd take you up till 8 o'clock. It's a minute and 9 seconds away from 8 o'clock. We're going to do that. And then you guys watch the game. I'm going to go watch the game. I'm going to jump on Konzo Martin's Zoom call afterwards, and then we're going to be on the post-game show, the dance class, presented by Burger Smokehouse, right after Konzo finishes. It takes me like 30 seconds, 45 seconds to download the video. After that, I will fire up the post-game show. We'll play Konzo's post-game. We'll take your calls. We'll talk about whatever it is that happens tonight. Either Missouri's going to be 7-0, and a lot of people are going to be talking about them as SEC favorites, or Missouri's going to be 6-1, and we're going to be talking about, hey, you got to go to Arkansas on the road and bounce back a little bit. So appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate you watching along. Hope you'll join us again in about 2.5 hours for the postgame show. Mizzou and Tennessee coming up on SEC Network. Check it out. Join me back here when it's done. Thanks.